All right, good afternoon and welcome to the January 30th Pembroke Upper Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board meeting. You'll notice that I'm a different face here, Victoria Charbonneau. I am the administrative staff support for the board. I am here today as I guess we have to call the meeting to order, or do we wait? Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order at 2:02. And first, we'll do a land acknowledgement. As we gather here today, I would respectfully acknowledge on behalf of the committee and the community that the city of Pembroke resides on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins and on whose land we reside. Okay, thank you. So I would ask that we have an approval of the agenda. Thank you. And a seconder. And an approval of the minutes. Oh, I apologize. I'm going to move back. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. I'm seeing none. Okay, so before we move into the actual agenda, we will do the election of the chair and vice chair so we can move on in regular fashion. So first, we'll do the election of the chair. I'd like to request nominations from the floor. Mr. St. Jean, thank you. Okay, and a second, okay. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair? And one final time, are there any nominations for the position of chair? All right, so Ron Jerva, I congratulate you on being elected chair of the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board. Okay, and moving on to the election of vice chair. So we'll repeat the process. I'd like to request nominations from the floor. Yes, Councillor Lafreniere. I'd like to nominate Christine Reedy for vice chair. Okay. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mr. St. Jean. And are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? And one final time, I ask for any final nominations for the position of vice chair. Okay, with no further nominations, I appoint you and congratulate you, Christine Reedy, on being elected the vice chair of the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP Detachment Board. All right, thank you. So I'm going to gladly step out of the chair and we'll let our newly appointed chair, Ron Jerva, conduct the rest of the meeting.
Okay, moving on to number 5, approval of the minutes. The minutes has been circulated in your packages for October 29th. And entertain a motion for their approval. I have Christine, seconded by Pat. Those in favor? That is carried. Business arising from the minutes. We have a bullet here. Insurance update is just to inform the board. I know that that Councillor Lafreniere knows. So it went to council. There is an insurance policy now in place for our board. As we might recall, underneath the new legislation, we no longer were captured by the city's general insurance policy as one of the standing committees, if you will. And so a policy is now in place with Intact Insurance. So we're covered off on that. I don't know if there's any other discussion that someone wishes to address in the minutes. Okay. Brings us to OPP report. And so welcome to the inspector and the staff sergeant. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations.
So everyone at home can.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get into the actual report, I'm just going to ask Staff Sergeant McNeil, who drafted what I refer to as the greatest hits for Q4, just the stuff that is not necessarily captured in the report. I'm just going to close this door. just to give the board and everybody watching what the in Q4.
Okay, so October saw, from a traffic perspective, Operation Impact, and throughout the entire detachment area, not just the city of Pembroke, there was 26 related charges: speeding, seatbelts, cell phone impaired, and a stunt driving charge. We had a number of community service type presentations within the community. So on the second, Constable Peever presented to the Kiwanis Club in Pembroke on MCERT, on the community street crime functions, community watch program, and the OPP's response to mental health illness and addictions. On the 10th, there was a meeting with the Silver Stick Committee, administration and hotel managers in the area to discuss strategies in response to unruly guests during the Silver Stick weekends. There was also a presentation with the hospital and kind of an organization for the Trojan Horse protest that was at the hospital. It was a respectful and peaceful protest at the hospital, and limited resources were there. October 22nd, there was 2 presentations at Jean Lajoie for grades 7 and 8, classes about online safety and cyberbullying awareness. And then on the 30th, there was a safety presentation and cruiser tour for the children involved at Bernadette McCann House. In November, we continued with some community presentations presented to the Pembroke Lumber Kings on social media, criminal code, HTA, and also our mobile crisis worker from the hospital attended to speak about their role and mental health resources in the community. We attended the Remembrance Day parade and helped to facilitate that. On the 12th, there was a fraud scam awareness presentation by one of our auxiliary members at Heritage Manor in Pembroke. On the 19th, there was 2 presentations at Equinox School for grades 6, 7, 8 on online safety, cyberbullying, and awareness. On the 25th, there was a OPP versus Special Olympics, the Hoop Dogs basketball game, which was very well received, and there was a sizable crowd, and there's a rematch scheduled for February this year. And then on the 30th of November was the assistance with the Santa Claus parade. In December, we saw Stuff the Cruiser at a number of locations: No Frills, Giant Tiger in Pembroke, and Independent and Walmart. There was $5,900 in cash and thousands of food items collected that day, and they went to the St. Joseph Food Bank as well as the Petawawa Pantry in Petawawa. We participated in Festive Ride throughout the month of December and into early January. The total for detachment area, not just the city of Pembroke, there was 129 rides and 18 impaired driving charges. The Warming Center, which we have a piece in, opened on the 6th of December. MCERT is completing regular walkthroughs, and we're just assisting with some foot patrols, but we're letting MCERT kind of take the lead on being there in a regular capacity. You would have heard on the news and in local areas with the city of Pembroke at the library, but we had our 28th annual Christmas Angels program, and it saw 602 angels. Kudos to Sarah Lapointe, who takes the lead on that, and she's one of our DACs at the Petawawa location. There was a presentation to the Police Foundation students in leadership and policing completed, and from a high school perspective, at Jean Lajoie School, there was a grade 11 presentation on career in policing, as well as Bishop Smith High School as well, another presentation to the grade 11 career class on policing. And also to note, we partnered with the operations of the city of Pembroke and submitted for the CCTV grant. Early January, we did the MCERT grant, and we just submitted, hopefully, yesterday for the RIDE grant in the city. And that's pretty much the greatest hits, if you have any questions.
Christine, then Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's so nice to hear so much involvement with the schools again. Like, it really says a lot for what you're doing in the community. The one thing that really caught my attention was the cruiser visit at Bernadette McCann House. I mean, with the children there, in a past life, I did work there, and you know, those kids are going through difficult times, and to see the police officers as a friendly face, and that would mean the world. So great for being there.
Yeah, good work. I guess my questions are more on the billing side, and a lot of times they are. So I know that the city pays for billable hours, and sometimes that's how our rates fluctuate. When it comes to like community type events, service, and where we're providing, services for the entire community, not just Pembroke, how is that broke down into billable hours?
These are all proactive things, so they're not billable calls for service.
So they're covered under the provincial
Yeah.
envelope?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, but not in a call for service manner.
You pay for it, but it's not a billable call for
Yeah.
service. You're already paying for it. That's what everybody pays.
okay,
Yeah.
and that's what I wanted to know, sort of the provincial umbrella.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Okay, so I just want to know, because I do get questions sometimes saying, I saw an officer like doing this,
Mhm.
and is that a Pembroke officer? So I knew about the provincial
Yeah.
envelope, but I just wanted to know. And I'm wondering, even though we don't pay for it, it might be nice to have a report saying how many hours our officers were doing that kind of community work and stuff like that. But I don't know, I don't want to put you through a lot of work. It is nice to say, some people say, oh, we don't see the police officers.
Did you
Walking
get
or-
this at Roma? Is that where you're going with this?
No, I wasn't at Roma. Why were they
Okay.
talking about this?
Well, you're stealing my thunder a little bit, but
Oh, no.
We'll
Okay,
get to
so you know what? I'll take it that maybe I know
we'll get
what
to
I'm
it.
inquiring about, but I'll look forward to Sergeant. Yeah, okay, I'll wait until you talk then.
I will answer your question in due time. I will.
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, obviously it was an issue, so that's good. A discussion. Yes,
Yeah, a discussion,
okay,
a discussion.
I'll look forward. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
I just want to highlight additionally just what Staff Sergeant McNeil mentioned about the engagement with our local hockey team here. That is, we've seen some negative press last year with our World Juniors and some alleged criminal offenses that they are facing from back in the day. This was a proactive initiative that we launched here. Honestly, to protect some of our potentially more vulnerable community members. These are hockey players. They are sometimes viewed as, idolized a little bit in our community. They are sometimes not aware of, something, a stupid text that they send can have long-term career altering ramifications. So this was more of a safety program, an education piece for them that will be continuing annually, is my expectation. We have an officer whose son plays for the Lumber Kings, so that was kind of our inroad, and he's well versed in the hockey world. So that was kind of the way we got into that. It was something that was brought up, and I said that is a fantastic idea. Obviously, there's a lot of negativity that could surface from a local player who will say these are young men that are sometimes brought in from other parts of the province, if not the continent, that maybe they don't have the same maturity that other people do, and something is said, done, texted, a photograph, what have you, that can have long-term implications. And obviously our desire to protect the name and the integrity of the city is, sorry, let me back that up. Obviously, we want to protect our youth, but also the name and the integrity of the city is why that was done. I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of. That's why we are engaging with the city, not because something has happened, because we never want something to happen.
With that, then, if you
With
wanted
that,
to.
the Q4 report.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, so for those of you that have the sheets, and I'm still navigating this new report, it doesn't print out in the order that I would like. So that's a bit of homework for me. I do like to start with what I always view the most serious, which is our violent crime, which on my computer here shows as page 20 of 23. If you don't want to flip back and forth through the packages, I will just provide the numbers to you. In the last quarter, October to December of 2024, in the violent crime category, I'm very pleased to say that we saw a 16% drop in violent crime in the third quarter, which translated as that is the final quarter in 2024, although it was a slight increase of 5.3% in total violent crime. That, I believe, I'd have to check my numbers, I think is the lowest increase in violent crime that we have had in a long time. So I'm hopeful, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm hopeful that this has sort of reached the peak, if you will, and we will start to see a downslide in 2025 when it comes to violent crime. Through our numbers, there was nothing that significantly jumped out at me. I mean, obviously in 2024, when you see a 100% decrease in homicides, well, yeah, thank goodness. That just refers to the 2 that we had charged back in 2023. So that's not normally a stat that we have to report on. The trend, I'm hoping, will continue for 2025, and we'll have our first assessment after the Q1 report for the violent crime. Jumping up to the property crime, which on my report will show as page 16 of 23. Again, the report for Q4 shows a very successful 24% reduction in property crime, which is absolutely fantastic, which translates to a year-end reduction of almost 10%, which I'm going to call a great start for 2025. Not too often that we can report a downtrend in our property crime, so that is, I'm going to say, a victory for us. Within the actual year of property crime, the numbers are small. 2023, we had 3 of them. In 2024, there were 7. So not a ton over the course of a year, but it does translate into 133% increase, which looks like, oh my God, it's such a huge number. That is reflected by the work of our street crime unit that are dealing with these individuals that are in possession of stolen goods and trafficking of stolen goods as part of their ongoing mandate. Jumping up to the page 12 of 23. As Councillor Lafreniere, always about the money. We're big on the billing, and I get that. This was, well, I'll qualify my response. The mental health calls for service year to date have increased. We were at 471 versus 435 the year previous. That's a year total. So more than 1 a day. Now we had a bit of a gap where we had one of our mental health officers, mobile crisis response team officers, transition to a detective position. So we did have a gap where he left, and then we had to run a competition and identify somebody internally. So there was a slight gap where we were reduced to 1. That doesn't translate into, all of a sudden there's more calls for service, because we didn't have any officer can respond to a mental health call for service. But we like to have the partnership with the worker and the officer going to these calls for service. That still remains and this is not unique to our community as far as mental health calls for service increasing, but it is a fact that we have to realize that they do continue to increase. They do continue to take up our resources, and it is an issue that we continue to address as you can see, on a daily basis. We are looking at some potential options within the detachment. We have our officers that actively respond to calls. Now, initially, when this program was created, it was to address our repeat callers, our prolific callers, as we call them, the individuals that take up a lot of our time on a regular basis. The call volume, unfortunately, is such that the officers are responding to more calls for service as opposed to being able to target the ones that are calling on a regular basis. if I can refer to the term, like, oh, they have to run and gun because they're literally going call to call to call. That has translated to less attention on what we call our prolific callers. So as a result, one of the options that we are exploring is there a way of our accommodated members, is there an opportunity for us to use our accommodated members to work the phones and call these individuals and say, okay, you're not in crisis today. Can I arrange for our MCERT member to meet you? And so target it that way, but that's a work in progress. But we still have our 7-day-a-week coverage. We have our 2 officers. We have our 2 workers. The grant, everybody cross your fingers because I'm really hopeful that we get this. I'm not trying to say that I have no idea why we were not successful the last time. Everything that we could have done, we did. I went so far as to solicit assistance from our MPP's office to say, I don't know what else we can do. This is clearly a need in our community. I don't know what else we can do to get this grant approved. I'm happy to say that he advocated for us. So we are waiting to see what will happen, but I am very confident that it will happen this time, which will continue the financial success of our program and allow it to sustain itself for the next few years. And I apologize, I don't know if the grant cycle was 2 years or 3? 2 years, thank you. So those were Staff Sergeant McNeil talked about the traffic side. I'm just going to slip up to page 10 of 23. And again, my apologies for the back and forth with the pages when it comes to this new report. I can guarantee the next time it will be in order. The year to date saw a slight uptick on drug crime. I have been in discussion with our street crime unit, and there are some potential targets that we have established for 2025 as far as I'll say ongoing issues that we're having in the downtown. So that is a work in progress that we're working towards. That in conjunction with our increased visibility in the downtown. So I'm kind of jumping out of order, but in response to council's request for an increase in foot patrol hours in the downtown, the board should be aware that how we score our foot patrols are divided into 2. One is for the downtown core, which would encompass like where the BIA is. That is foot patrol. Then there is Pembroke foot patrol, which could be at the mall. That could be down towards the marina. So there's 2 different locations that foot patrol is being scored. Bless you. The request for an increased presence in the downtown was identified by council, was supported by council. A discussion was had at the detachment where we are going to ask for a 5 to 10%, which I think is very achievable, increase in the foot patrol hours. Now, the request from council was just more. There wasn't a number attached to it. So my request from the detachment through the operations was a 5 to 10%, which I believe is a very achievable number over the course of the year. So the officers are being, I don't want to say re-educated, but just making sure that a lot of their hours are being scored properly, that if you are in the downtown, that is scored to a certain number. If you are doing foot patrol, well, that's a different number. Don't score it as you were hanging around the downtown when you were down on the trail down by the marina. So it's a different location. So making sure that they are scoring their hours correctly in the correct location. So that is happening, and we're breaking it down. Do we have the numbers for?
Yeah, so the numbers are only available up to
January
25th, but we were on target for the whole month last year already, so 27 hours have been committed, and that's not including the last 5 days that would hopefully generate a few more hours, so we should be at that about 10%. And hopefully our number will be 30 by the end of can run it again next week, but they only have
Month 1 of 12. So let's, if we're
at
on
least
target,
matching or above.
if we're on target, that's all I'm asking for. Let's be on target. Now, of course, qualifying that, we've asked for an increase in the downtown. Something is not getting done as a result of that. So what that is, we'll see what the numbers come out as. If we are asking the officers to spend more time downtown, what are they spending less time doing? We don't know where that's at. This is a 1-year project. Let's see what the year looks like. Let's see what the feedback is from the BIA at the end of the year. If their response is, well, you know what, you say there was a 10% increase, but we never saw any officers and the downtown is still problematic. Okay, well, then we're going to reevaluate and see what that. There was a written report by the city of Barrie where they had a very similar issue with their, I guess that's BPIA, where they had an increased presence on foot, very similar issues in the city of Barrie in their downtown, where they wanted increased police presence. And it was mixed reviews. It was some people embraced, yes, no, I saw lots more police and it was great. I felt a lot more safe. There were other people that were, well, that's not an appropriate use of police resources. You should be putting the money that you're spending, putting cops downtown should have been spent somewhere else into social programs. Like, there's always a mixed review. The request was made by council. We are supporting that request. We're 1 month into it and we are on target. We'll do a mid-year review, see where we're at, and then a year-end review with the PBIA. Questions about that before I move on?
I wasn't sure if we were taking questions at the end of everything.
No,
or-
by all means.
I have a few other, but I'll get to them at the end. But in regards to this,
Yes, ma'am.
so the county and the city were just approved for the Heart Hub.
Yes.
And because of that coming into play and the 24-hour warming cooling center that is now open behind OATC, I'm hoping that the problems that BIA were experiencing will reduce, because now there perhaps will be less people killing time downtown in the summer or winter. So I'm hoping it's going to reduce it, because now they have a place to go 24 hours a day, 12 months a year. I'm hopeful. I know I have mixed feelings about how bad it is downtown. I believe the merchants are in their stores all day watching, so they're more likely to see something, even if only one person is loitering inappropriately, right? Whereas as a shopper and a visitor who goes down to yoga or purchase, I see very little things happening that aren't good. So it depends on whose perspective you're speaking from, I think. And I'm going to say, yeah, let's wait and see to the end of the year. There's a lot of new programs coming in that hopefully are going to mitigate it. I know that Mesa has seen a huge success. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but out of the individuals they've been reaching out to, the percentage is mind-boggling as to how many individuals are actually now improved their life, their addiction, their homelessness situation, whatever it may be. So I'm hoping all of this is going to help, and then maybe the foot patrol hours,
And
won't.
again, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Counselor, thank you. And just slipping down to page 15 of 23, just to prove your point, the reduction in opioid overdoses and fatal opioid overdoses, we've seen a decrease, 38 versus 42. So that is a success. That is a success. And what multiple factors, I mean, that is not, those are police calls for service that I'm reporting on. However, that has been a community response, such as Mesa. I don't want to disclude the great work that MCERT has done. We have done the active patrols with Mesa, engaging with our marginalized community members. We have been handing out naloxone kits in our cell block, in the courthouse. These are all I'm going to say contributing factors to the success of that number going down. And I'm very confident we're going to see that number continue to decline, especially with the introduction of a heart hub, which I am a big believer.
So further to that, I did have another question in regards to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
increase in mental health calls.
Yes.
Would that be because you are working so closely with Mesa? Like, would they ever call you? Would the Mesa team ever call the police when they're in a situation? Would that be affecting this?
So the Mesa team has called us
Okay,
and we have called Mesa.
okay.
So
It's good. It's two-way street.
mutual response, if you will.
Good.
I don't have the exact number of times.
Mhm.
I can say that our joint patrols are occurring on a bi-monthly basis. I know that we did not get patrols in just because of scheduling issues in January, but I reviewed the numbers for since we started that after our meeting in the spring when we started that, and that was about twice a month on average, which is great. And we don't want to overload it either.
No.
Like it's a great partnership. It's a great initiative. And as long as the momentum is continuing, and I just had the conversation with the officer today, it is continuing in February and the date is already booked.
Okay.
So that partnership continues.
Thank you.
Slipping down to page 17 of 23, two items that I want to speak about. The first one, public complaints. Fantastic numbers. My conversation with one of our professional standards officers at the beginning of this month on a completely other matter was that there's 2 detachments in Eastern Ontario that we never have issues with, and this is one of them. So I think that is a culture that you and I have created here, where we are certainly very vocal about the values of the OPP. Interacting with the public is always done professionally, empathetically, very victim-centered when we're dealing with victims of crime. I'm very pleased to say that public complaints are not really an issue in Upper Ottawa Valley. When he tells me there is an officer with 2, not at this detachment, the example he provided, and I won't mention the detachment, but there's an officer with 2 years on who's got 8 public complaints already. Like, clearly there is an issue when a whole detachment doesn't have even close to that. And one officer is generated. He's either in self-destruct mode or just doesn't get it. Slipping down to the bottom of page 17 of 23, I just want to qualify the numbers that are down at the bottom here. When you see, and this is the bulk of this is related to a patrol cruiser, 501 hours in 2023 versus 298. So you may think, oh my God, we're losing all these patrol hours. That is not the case at all. This is our request that the officers be more strategic with their time, certainly be more accountable for your time. The days of just here, take the keys and just drive around until there's a call for service. So the officer, at the end of the day, when they are, and this is how the city, the municipality is built. Like, what did the officer do all day? Well, I did 2 calls and then the rest just say I drove around. No, that's not what you did. So the tightening up of the hours is not a reflection of lack of patrol in the community. It's just that the officers are being more diligent with where they are and what they're doing. And not only that, they are being direct. Like, we have focused patrols all the time. We have directed patrols all the time. We have requests for foot patrols. We have school patrols. Be accountable for your time. And it's not a question of the officers are just not there anymore. They're just not, they're being more accurate with their time. So I just wanted the board to make sure that they were not thinking that they were somehow missing out on patrol hours that they were entitled to. The last page that I just want to jump to was 19 of 23, and it's referrals to victim service agencies. So again, an increase, which to me is a success. Certainly with the addition of our victim specialist, who is, if you recall, that is the civilian employee, the only one in Eastern Ontario housed at the Pembroke Detachment, who her only role is to support victims that are, lots of referrals. Obviously, not everybody wants to accept the referrals, but that is an increase. More victim engagement is obviously a success. That is part of our strategic plan, supporting our victims. It's also comes out of the recommendations that came out of the inquiry. CKW. That, unless there is anything else on the number side, that was what I wanted to specifically highlight.
If I can, just two different things.
Yes, sir.
One, earlier you were talking about exploring using accommodated officers in respect to mental health calls and so forth. Is there enough, and maybe that's what you're exploring, is there enough resources there to also then cover off the collision reporting center?
So I can comment on that specific piece. The collision reporting center, we actually 2 hours and 38 minutes ago, we had a retirement party at the detachment for the officer that was in charge of the collision reporting center. The in total, 34 years of service, 31 of those with the OPP. That officer is going to be retired for all of 4 days, and then he is starting as a part-time constable in the courthouse. So one of the priorities that we identified for 2025 was revamping the court security that exists at Pembroke Courthouse. Some issues, an incident that occurred in September of 2024 saw a person in custody escape custody out of the courthouse, hopped out and ran out of the building. Fortunately, was caught very quickly. However, anytime there is an escape from a courthouse, it results in an internal investigation with which Staff Sergeant Marianne completed. Two issues that were highlighted were obviously lack of staff, which we knew, and just the placement of officers. So in order to address those issues, we have hired 2 part-time constables. So these are retirees that have come back as part-time constables. They will be there, and this has been an issue since I arrived here. The court staff, the judicial staff have always requested they want an armed presence in the courthouse should the need arise, which yes, we do. We do our best to have an armed officer there, but that is not always possible. That is now a realization where we will have Monday to Friday, there will be an armed officer, and not relying taking somebody off the road to do it or making like having an admin sergeant slide down. There will be 2 part-timers there that break up the week, and they will be there full time. We have gained permission to advertise 2 full-time special constable positions at the courthouse, which I'm hopeful that there will be internal interest. We have some part-timers there that I'm hoping will apply for the full-time, which will create additional part-time vacancies, which I messaged right before this meeting. I messaged our hiring staffing officer, said as soon as these full-timers are hired, I want the part-timers advertised immediately. So I am very confident by the end of this year, the courts, the staffing at the courthouse will no longer be an issue. So please tell your colleagues.
Because I'm trying to recall years ago when I was in the courthouse more frequently, whether or not court officers were armed or not, but I don't recall.
I don't know if
It's
Pembroke
neither
Police
here nor
Service had armed. I know they had special constables down there. I don't know if they were armed or not.
Our court officers before COVID, when we were at the courthouse, kind of moved away from the down there.
And I can just think back that often there was, because obviously, as we always say, crime knows no boundary. So you might have Deep River there, you might have OPP there. We used Pembroke might be there. Like there might be multiple different officers there. So I know in the courtroom, I never felt insecure or anything because there was no shortage of officers around me all the time. In any event, the second, I'm wondering if you can speak to and inform this board, Renfrew County substance use meetings. And I know at those meetings in terms of the great work happening there, but I know that there is a police presence as one of the stakeholders there. I'm just wondering if shedding some light so that this board knows what your involvement is at that level.
Like numbers wise, or
No, just a more higher level, because I don't know, unless the board informs me otherwise. I know whenever I go, and so sometimes I'm trying to remember why I know what I know, as I said to Councillor Jackano once before. So just so that the board is aware of the involvement of the OPP as one of the stakeholders, not number wise, but just that there's meetings and the collaborative approach, because you already mentioned about the other one about the MCERT team and so forth.
so certainly as part of our overall overreaching community safety and well-being plan, we are participants in that committee. I myself or staff sergeant attend as representatives. Again, the how would I put it? The effect of the common complaints with the addictions and the marginalized community members are always, I'd say the police are always we're quickly pointed at saying, why aren't you doing more with that? And I'm not saying we don't have a seat at that table, because we do, but again, it's more of a different approach, more of a holistic approach. And certainly, yeah, I guess I'm struggling with, as far as for the benefit of the board, our involvement or why we're involved.
I guess all I was looking is just to ensure that the board understood that Renfrew County Health Unit has these substance use meetings, and that the police do have a role to play, are present. But yes, it's not charging anyone's way out of it or anything, but just that the OPP are working together with, I'm trying to look around the room to see all the different faces, but whether it's any number of different organizations that are there. There was representation from, and I'm picturing the grind, but there's also the like just a whole group working together to try and address issues. So that's all. I just wanted to make sure, but it wasn't statistics or anything like that. And no, it's not to try and put you on the spot to say, well, are we being asked to charge our way through things? No, but we are working together, and we'll provide whatever assistance we can together with the others. And so everyone's working together. That's all I was trying to get at.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So my knowledge of the committee, Councillor Purcell sits on that committee.
Yes, he does.
And I know a few other individuals that sit there. There's a representation from marginalized individuals
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well. And so what it is it's more of an information sharing and thinking of what are other ways to combat some of the things like paraphernalia being left on private property, things of that nature. So I think the benefit of having police representation is more input. What are they seeing on the street? Do they see something that maybe community partners could be doing, or things of that nature? I think that is the big benefit.
And it's funny that you mentioned the needles on the ground, because that was brought up by the PBIA as potentially being an issue. And again, it's more of a question of, is it an issue or is it the perception that it's an issue, right?
Yes.
So that is where we are in a position to comment on certain aspects, specific to and I will say, because that is the role of police, is the crime suppression and law enforcement. On the street crime side, we just had interviews for 2 vacancies on that team. So that is, we hired 2 of our two officers were successful in the process. So that team is fully staffed now. And they do have some plans for the community in the upcoming months. So I anticipate, and they've been, they were extremely successful in 2024. which is a good and a bad thing. But I'm expecting some great things in the upcoming months. So stay tuned on that. Was I talked about the court security. I talked about the street crime. There was interviews yesterday, not really related to the city, but for the overall Upper Ottawa Valley for 2 vacant staff sergeant positions, one in Killaloe, one in Petawawa. So we will have 3 staff sergeants covering the whole Upper Ottawa Valley, which now includes Killaloe. Those happened yesterday. There's a multifaceted process. Interview, written exam, presentation, scenario, scored references. So it's a process. It's a lengthy process. It's pretty heavy on the work for me. But that is the interviews were yesterday. So that's which is the major component of the process is how they do, which how it used to work, which far be it for me to disagree with our commissioner. I liked it when if I was hiring a staff sergeant, I would gear the questions to be, if we were, for example, I want strong community engagement. That's what I'm looking for in my staff sergeant. So I would gear questions to that topic. If I want, if things have really gotten out of control in the detachment, I want a strong detachment commander that's not afraid to hold people accountable. Really, the interviews now are totally driven out of our headquarters. They're canned questions, and here's the questions you're going to ask the members. And you look at it, and I'll say our headquarters is they have a certain slant on the questions that I don't necessarily agree with, and they don't really know what's going on in our communities. It's not questions that I would ask, but there is no perfect process, but that is our process. The only question that I'm allowed is the scenario, which I thought was really good. And I heard today they came out of the interview like, oh, that was a tough question. So that had a very local flavor to our downtown. So we'll see what that looks like. And there'll be an announcement in the local media when the members are identified.
Well, the only way you're allowed to interject or to supplement it is with the scenario question. Like these are the standardized ones. I get that, but you're not allowed to have a section D where you get to ask some
more
relevant.
That is, there's a good and bad to that in that it avoids any sort of, and I know why they did it. It's to ensure complete transparency in the process that I can't say, oh, Miriam, make sure you study community engagement and be prepared for that in the interview. I have no idea what they're going to ask. The questions arrive the day before. I look at them and I go, oh boy, there's your interview. So I understand why they do it. I just don't like it. And that doesn't mean anything. Steph Newell doesn't like a lot of things. But the process is what it is, if I can use that cliche. And the interviews happened yesterday. We interviewed, we had 7 applicants, which is great. We interviewed 5, and the chips will fall where they may.
Staff Sergeant, would it be worth the effort to have victim services go into the schools with an officer when they do go in? Because it seems like, I can't tell what numbers, but it's a large percentage of the 11 to 16-year-olds are being shown here in referrals.
So with victim services for a child, their parent would have to be. So
Okay.
they would just like force it on them. I do know that a lot of the schools have their own social worker that takes count of anybody who may be their feeling is in need. By all means, if there's a connection that's already been established, they would be able to potentially go with, but it's not for us to be able to say to a student who's in that age range that they're allowed to access victim services without their parents' knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That concludes the presentation on the report. If there's any questions, and as always, if there's a question that comes up later on, you all know how to get a hold of me. Was there anything I missed on that? The upcoming, there was a request from council to present on the activities of 2024, which I do every year. That is occurring in February. That said, under the new CSPA, as I learned, as I was not aware, I am not allowed to discuss statistics at this meeting until they have been officially vetted and approved by our headquarters, which under the new act, I'm required to present to all of our municipal councils by June of 2024. I received a 2-page schedule on when everything that I'm supposed to do, and for the board's awareness, I will attend the council meeting. There will be a presentation on our activities, similar to what the staff sergeant presented on their greatest hits, talk about the golden helmets. The report will not have statistics. This is how many charges we laid. This is how many overdoses we investigated. The statistics will not be, they will be provided to council at our likely May meeting or June.
Yeah, whenever you do your regular annual one. This is more or less a special request.
Okay, I thought this was going to be my annual one, but the regular one will be the official one under the CSPA.
Yes,
that I'm
yeah, no,
required
and
to
I
present
think
on.
this was just
And
more
that
or
will
less.
have the vetted stats approved by our headquarters.
Correct, yeah, no, okay. Questions, Des?
Thank you for that presentation on the stats, Inspector. Recently, we saw the announcement of the funding of the heart hubs
Yes, sir.
in the county. How does the introduction of the heart hub help benefit, and like how will that change the interaction or that you guys have? Like what role does that play in like policing locally?
Well, I would say that by nature of our community compared to others, this is a hub location for support services. So that tends to attract certain individuals to the community that are seeking those services. The Heart Hub, my hope is the spirit of supporting these individuals and getting them out of the spiral that they're in right now. Number one, the homelessness piece, the addictions piece, and the biggest one, the treatment piece. So how does that help? Well, that's going to be determined, right? I mean, this is just an announcement. Like anything, it's a support system in place for what I will call one of our most vulnerable community members, right? So if I were to predict the future, how will it help? Well, a reduction in the number of individuals. I mean, this has been announced. Let's see what this looks like in 5 years, right? My hope is that individuals are successful in the usage of it and are able to reintegrate into society as productive members. We saw I think we all saw the presentation that CBC did on his report and some of the personal stories that were told. Like, I mean, there's individuals that, I mean, nobody's born wanting this life. They, for whatever reason, decisions made or, sometimes not their fault, this is where they ended up and they are just unable to get out of it. That's my hope. So at the end of the day, like if we want to talk about the big picture, helping our community members, less burden on many support systems within the community, the police included, not just exclusively the police, but on lots of system healthcare, right? The individuals that go to the hospital all the time, individuals that the police deal with, individuals at the grind, the warming center. If our community didn't need the grind or the warming center, wow, how great would that be? That's a celebration. So the nexus to police involvement, are police involved with our marginalized community members? On occasion, both in a proactive, when we do our Mesa foot patrols, when we check on the individuals that are reported living in tents, checking on their well-being. So on the proactive side, as well as the reactive side when people are in crisis and the OPP are called. So there's a lot of great things that I think, what did they say? 18 of them are coming? No, they identified. Yeah, no. How many heart hubs? There's, no, Renfrew County, but provincially, like, I think that's going to do wonders for lots of communities, not just us. Believe me, I am, that's why I went to the announcement at County Council. There's a reason I was there, is because that was a celebration. That's a celebration for everybody in our community.
And hopefully as it integrates, we'll able to take some pressure off the police so you guys can divert to other.
Well, take
Thanks.
pressure off a lot of organizations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just for further information, when an individual is in crisis and is spiraling in addiction, presently, they have no local option. Hospital will not take them. So they just keep spiraling. And yes, they resort to crime to continue to feed their addiction, et cetera, et cetera. Once the Heart Hub is up and operating, hopefully these individuals will have a local place to go to get that treatment. They don't have to rely on anyone to get there, North Bay, Ottawa, things like that. So hopefully, yes, it will reduce the crime level. It will hopefully get this person the help they need. And same thing, like the foot patrols, maybe the neighborhoods will feel better because there's less people, out on the streets, homeless, suffering. So yeah, I think hopefully, and I'm the same. I was ecstatic, and I'm anxious to see how this translates.
So you were at the announcement at the county
Yes, sir.
chambers? Okay. And so some of us were just zooming in so that not everyone was there. So as I recall it, CEO Craig Kelly indicated that lots of work to be done between now and April 1st. So yes, an application went in. Yes, there's an announcement, but now it's, okay, so now it's go time. And what does that translate to? The other thing that was said at the recent warming center meeting, and I know the staff sergeant was present representing the OPP, is the conversation about not duplicating services. And I think it was even in the application for the Heart Hub for here, is that there's so many different great services. So we're not trying to duplicate, we're just trying to fill holes. And so the county seems to be cognizant, doesn't seem to be, is cognizant of not duplicating services. So where can we do this? And then we have all these different great resources, but let's not duplicate things. So that was interesting, because I know the staff sergeant gave a very good presentation, if you will, to the warming center in terms of the OPP involvement in the warming center and what you had observed and so forth. So, it's at those meetings and here, it's helpful to hear so individuals firsthand that are at these different situations, what it is that is transpiring, and so that we know and we don't have to then go to different locations and observe firsthand. We get it through you. This is how it's working, it's not working, what have you. And from what I can gather, it's working very well. So is there other
That
items?
concludes my report, unless there's any questions.
One question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the community wellness plan. Are we supposed to do a report card or anything, or next steps? Like, I know the plan was developed not just by our municipality. I think it was done. Yeah, it was done in partnership. Is there anything that we need to do, like in any plan? I know that we're already involved in many community organizations sitting at different tables, and I think that was one of the components. But is there something we're supposed to be moving forward when it comes to checking boxes off for that community wellness plan?
One of the pillars at the Renfrew County Health Unit Steering Committee, one of the pillars is the community wellness. Our CAO is actually the chair of that particular committee. So there's a number of one's communications, I believe, and anyways, a number of different pillars, but he's the one that's at that committee. As I've told Councillor Purcell before, often the reason for attending is just to get it firsthand so that you can, because it's not something like if it was roads, I've done enough years in operations to understand roads, you know, what I do understand in terms of roads and so forth. But that's my understanding is our CAO has taken up that challenge. So in terms of if you're wondering where his time goes, that's one of the aspects is he's the chair of the well-being plan pillar. And so through that, again, I'll call it collaborative. That seems to be the buzzword there, is all these different organizations around the table, and then they do a presentation and, okay, so what are we doing on that front to advance it? And then they have their own little committee, and I'm trying to remember the name, lived experience, people with lived experience on different groups and so forth, so that they're getting, you know, these committees are getting it firsthand. This is what they're dealing with, because what I might think that they're dealing with and what they actually are dealing with might be two different things, and probably is two different things. So,
And if I can also add that part of your 2025 goals as a board, upon reviewing the community safety wellbeing plan, if there's certain issues within that were identified within the city, which homelessness, the addictions, obviously there isn't a community in Upper Ottawa Valley that didn't identify supports for mental health as a priority. If the board were to identify, 2 or 3 goals and say, you know what, for 2025, we are going to do some PSAs or outreach for, and I don't want to speak for the board, that's a board decision. But if there are certain elements within the community safety wellbeing plan that you want to take on and say, you know what, we're really going to push. The only thing I will encourage is maybe IPV prevention, domestic violence reduction or support, although it wasn't domestic violence, supporting either supporting victims or messaging, the outreach. If you're a victim, reach out to the police. I know, and again, and I've said this to the board before, that where, yes, we do have high numbers, but I view that as, yes, there are victims, and we know that is a tremendously underreported stat, but I am encouraged by the fact that there are victims that have enough faith in their police service to come forward, because we know many victims suffer in silence. Many do. And if the board wanted to champion that, I would certainly think that'd be very appropriate for our community.
the board knows one thing that the council did do is pass a resolution about intimate partner violence in 2024. Don't ask me what month, but I just remember that we did that.
So
But certainly.
through the chair,
Yep,
yeah,
Pat.
I would support maybe some PSAs. I saw something very effective on social media the other day, and it was, a woman walking with her partner sort of touched someone else who was walking by. And apparently that was something that they encourage if you're being abused, some kind of signal. So it's like, how can you communicate that you're in a dangerous situation without saying it? Or, so it's signals. So it's, it's an education piece, I guess. I did see another program once about that. And I forget, there's either a word or a gesture that you're supposed to do to let people know that maybe they should call the authorities. So anyway, I would be very supportive.
Just a suggestion to the board, if there's, 2 or 3 targets that you want to focus in on 2025 and review what your goals are and say, yes, in support of our community safety wellbeing plan, we are going to prioritize these 3 items for 2025 through PSAs, through outreach, through what's the thing in May? The expo. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Well, further to that conversation then, could you bring to the next meeting some concepts, like what type of promotion we could do? Like, I know radio ads, or that would be the best, maybe a social media uptake.
That's the board's request.
Okay, well,
Well, we need a motion, but if that's the direction,
Direction?
certainly that, I know that Constable Peaver from time to time will reach out and he'll inquire, and some of it is cyclical in the sense that, okay, we're heading into September, and if the buses are running in September this year as opposed to what happened last year. But anyways, it's like, okay, so should we be running this type of ad or that type of PSA and so forth? But certainly, and we have our Facebook page that seemingly a lot of people are paying attention to from what I can see on the numbers. So. Yeah. Yeah, all good. Christine?
I do have a question. And so very recent event in our city, and it was called a home invasion, which is not a term I've heard really used in our area in the past. We hear about it, horrific things happening in the bigger cities and all of that. So I guess really my question might be, is that something, a term that was used by the OPP for the event, or was it perhaps media generated?
I'm familiar with the term. I'm familiar with the incident. I know that that's currently under investigation by our street crime unit. It's what I would refer to as a very targeted incident, nothing that would necessarily, sorry. The title in the media could be alarming to the public. It was a very localized event and specifically targeted, and the matter is currently under investigation.
Comes back to when you're doing statistics, the lingo that you use and the officers use to put things in different categories. Sometimes we're not used to seeing, and so hence the questions.
Yeah. Final 2 points. Our next traffic campaign for 2025 is our safe snowmobiling, which is on the 17th. So we will have some enforcement on our local trails. We will have some local enforcement as well, and that is currently being organized for the month of February. That is our first 2025 traffic initiative. I will ask the board if there is any interest in a specific guest speaker over the course of the year. To please let me know. The Petawawa board has asked for an individual from our anti-rackets unit to talk about current trends that they are seeing with victimization of our seniors, which is, and we kind of discussed it briefly, how these are very slick operators. When they call, it actually shows up on your call display as Scotiabank. Oh, hi, Pat, did you just make these purchases? No, I didn't. Okay, well, we'll refund your money right now. Just hit accept. Oh, okay, thank you, Scotiabank. And all of a sudden there's $3,000 out of your account. It is unbelievable how these individuals operate. There's a whole crypto aspect to it as well. Locally, we have 2 officers that are conducting these investigations full time. They are completely overwhelmed. There is that much work going on. I just saw today they have, between the 2 of them, they've got 50 ongoing investigations. Frauds are not, they can be extremely complex, especially when you add that money being transferred into cryptocurrency and then tracking that. Like, I mean, that's not even real money, right? So, I mean, how do you follow like fake internet money, right? Like, it's very difficult. It's complex. It's not impossible, but it's very complex, very time consuming. Further to that point, the request was made, and I think you saw it as well, as they're actually looking for, is there anybody else that we can put into this unit to assist them? So that's another staffing request that we're looking to address internally.
Through you, I think the seniors are at such high risk I mean, some of them know how to operate a computer, but are not aware of all these threats. And, you know, I'll say my husband is one because he can get on the computer, check his email, can't do much else, go on social media. But these alerts come up on your screen when you get an email. And I know I came home one day and he says, a BMO alert came up saying there was suspicious activity in your account. And I said, well, hope you didn't do anything. Like, he didn't go, no. And sure enough, like, I went online later and there was nothing happening. But, you know, if you're not real savvy, yeah, like they would click on that. So
And we
it's-
haven't even touched the whole AI side of this,
Why, yeah.
where they have,
Wow.
you know, fake voices that they've somehow managed to, hey, it's your son. Can you send me $300 immediately to this telephone number? Okay, I'm in trouble, Dad. Send this to me now.
Yeah.
Okay, and
It's
some
happened twice
individuals
to
will
my
do it.
mother, twice to my mother. Once the person said it was my niece and she was in trouble. She lives in Stittsville. She needed some money transferred, you know, because she was in jail over cell phone use or something. And my mom she said, what's your mother's name? That's how she got her. She was smart enough after, you know, this went on for a while, because my niece just had a baby. So first she said, where's the baby? And they even know the husband's name. They said, well, home with Ben. Mom said, what's your mom's name? And the person said, why would you ask me that? Then they hung up. But it
Oh,
was
good.
close.
Kudos to her. That's well, because not
Yeah,
a lot
and
of people would.
She's 88 years old and she knew enough
Bless
to
her heart.
ask. And then
Bless
the
her
other
heart.
day she got another call saying it was my nephew. And my nephew's actually homeless in Ottawa. So it was like she didn't know. Eventually they hung up and she told me it sounded like him, but
Yeah.
it just, wow, that's 2 in a year.
So
Yeah.
for the board's awareness, that is what Petawawa has asked and Anti-Rackets has
Okay.
obliged. So if
Mhm.
that is something the board wants, or if there's another avenue that the board would like a guest speaker on, I'm more than happy to facilitate that.
Yeah.
Put on the list then, Inspector, that an email sent out so that we would know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. And perhaps we could advertise that streaming. Like if we're going to have that individual come and present, we could advertise with your TV and everything, maybe get it streamed so people can watch it. A lot of seniors in our community still have Cogeco TV. Would we be able to do that? Or this is for us.
We are right now on
We're live
YouTube.
anyway, so that would be part of a live stream.
So
But
in
we could
terms,
advertise it way ahead.
Or if that was identified as a board priority and one of your goals for 2025, and how did you support your goals? Well, hey, we brought in Anti-Rackets to come and do a presentation, live streamed to the community
Right. And we could promote it ahead a lot.
for the board's discussion.
Okay, I think that's a great idea, and we promote it so that we get maximum seniors tapping in to watch, because let's face it, I don't know how many people are watching now, but. It's recorded too, so you can think. Okay, so we could use it, okay.
I just to chime in on that, I'm thinking that because we have so many seniors in the community, maybe they don't have access to streaming, but invite them to somewhere, say the curling club, which is a wonderful venue with big TVs to, you know, participate. And that's just one example. Maybe there are other library, you know, places in town that could host something like that. It's pretty important stuff.
I know that Kiwanis years ago invited Constable Etier to come to Kiwanis. And if we face it, a lot of the Kiwanians are in that category. So in any event, that's where the presentation, I imagine it's different, but there was a presentation just about, you know, seniors and being preyed upon and so forth. And she was very good at providing that information. So yeah, anywhere that you can get the information out to the public is certainly well worth it. So anything else for the inspector, or do we move forward with 8B? Okay, let's move forward to 8B. And Madam Clerk, did you want to bring your report?
Thank you. So good afternoon again. Before the board, I have a report simply stating out some dates for the rest of the meetings for the year 2025. And as you'll see in our terms of reference, the board is required to meet a minimum of 4 times on an annual basis. And if additional meetings are needed, the chair can so call them. The discussion outlines the proposed dates, all on Wednesdays at a consistent time from 1 to 3. So you'll see the first date is Wednesday, May 21st from 1 to 3. The second proposed date is July 23rd from 1 to 3. And lastly, the October Q4 meeting would be October 22nd from 1 to 3. Just looking to see if the board had consensus or if there were any issues with the dates presented. And if not, if the board would like to accept them, we can then go ahead and post them online so the public knows when the board anticipates to meet for the remainder of the year.
And you can also then secure this room as well, because others obviously compete for this room.
That is very correct.
They all look good to me. I guess my only concern would be July 23rd. Like, doesn't matter to me because I'm almost on vacation all summer. So it doesn't matter to me, but I'm looking at more staff. Does the 23rd come in the heat of vacation? Maybe we want to move it a week earlier or something of that nature. So I'm going to look to staff. Last 2 weeks of July sometimes can be very hard to, to commit to ahead.
No, I appreciate the thought. For myself personally, that date doesn't present a conflict, but I am open to certainly switching based on other members who aren't part of the board or municipal
Or
staff.
or the officers themselves, right? So I'm open to that.
I've got nodding, and
I'm good.
nodding. There we go. Okay, right on.
Great.
So with that, if we can have a motion to adjourn, I have Christine seconded by Des. Those in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Great. So you'll send those meeting invites? Or-
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I will do that likely Monday. That's what we do.
Yep.
Packages
Nope.
tomorrow, but everyone will have it well in advance.
Thank you.